Optimal health for high performers. This is the Health Upgrade Podcast with Dr. Nawaz Habib.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Health Upgrade Podcast. This is Dr. Habib. I've got JP with me here. How are you, sir?
Doing very well, thank you.
Amazing. And we are delighted to be joined by our special guest today, Dr. Shivani Gupta. How are you, Shivani?
Doing very well.
We are excited to have you here. It's a long time coming. We've been chatting, talking, connecting for quite a while, and spoken at the same conferences and, numerous connections and meetings and wonderful things. To kind of put this finally together is very exciting for us. And it actually is aligned perfectly with your upcoming book, The Inflammation Code. Look at that.
Excited. So excited.
I can imagine. I'm excited for you. And, as you are aware, we talk all about inflammation and the role of inflammation, the control of inflammation, what needs to happen. But you do it from a very unique perspective. You do it from an Ayurvedic perspective and looking at health from the traditional Eastern medicine side of things, which I think is starting to gain a lot more steam recently, seeing as how, healthcare hasn't been doing so hot in the Western world for quite a while. So I think it's time for us to start talking about inflammation from an Eastern perspective, start looking at it a little bit deeper. I'd love to dig in to understand kind of what was the initial step for you saying that you needed to write a book about inflammation.
I've studied Ayurveda for decades. And when I discovered Ayurveda for myself in India, I sat at these gurus' feet. I was learning Ayurveda from them. And as I looked around, these big Ayurvedic detox centers were full of people from all over the world, like Germans and Europeans. And I thought, wow, there's a whole portion of this world that gets it, that this is a valid science. How do I go and teach everyone where I live in America and in the West that this is valid? And so it was from that point decades ago that I decided I am going to one day write books on this so people will absorb it and practice it. And so that's what led to this. I have been teaching Ayurveda. I've been working with thousands of clients over the years. 10 years ago, I built an Ayurvedic supplement company. That got me really interacting with people about their pain, their inflammation, their sleep. So I've heard thousands upon thousands of stories, worked with people, given them guidance, seen what Ayurvedic herbs can do for them. And then finally, I realized people very much in the West, myself included, like to take a pill for a problem. We're like, what's the one solution? Give me the one thing. But Ayurveda always teaches us we actually need the entire toolkit. We need the lifestyle shift if we want to hold the result. And so that's why I wrote the book, because yes, I truly believe turmeric can solve 99% of our problems. I've always believed that since I studied it. But I also wanted to bring in this wisdom of circadian rhythm and a rhythm and lifestyle we can build that can then give us the longevity and the health span we deserve.
So can you, just because our audience may not be as knowledgeable about Ayurvedic medicine and just maybe take a step back and explain what the difference is between Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese traditional medicine and other forms of non-Westernized medicine?
For sure. So we have an umbrella called complementary and alternative medicine. You could also call it integrative medicine. And under that umbrella are actually a lot of different modalities. You can call chiropractic under that. You can call naturopathic, homeopathic. There is traditional Chinese medicine, which encompasses their own set of herbology, as well as acupuncture, which everybody knows about. And then, unfortunately, at the last door of every integrative medicine option, people will find Ayurveda. And so my dream is just to bring that one forward and say, look, all the modalities are valid. Each of us are bio-individual. So I love when I talk to someone saying, you know what, you need chiropractic, you need acupuncture, you need this one. And when it's kids, homeopathic is wonderful to start in that gentler modality. And so Ayurveda is an entire system of health, healing, and medicine from India that's over 5,000 years old. And under this umbrella of Ayurveda, our approach is first, know your dosha. Dosha is your elemental design, as I call it now in the book. It's your elements that are the driving force behind your body type, your mental type, your physical, emotional type. Everything comes under that constitution. And so I love teaching people what they are from a body type perspective, and then letting them use that to navigate their diet, their lifestyle, their habits, their circadian rhythm, all based on that. Then Ayurveda teaches us there's a circadian clock. which is an Ayurvedic concept. And now in longevity biohacking, it's a buzzword. But what Ayurveda really said is we must live in rhythm with nature. If we are living in disharmony with nature, we will have disharmony with our health. And it's that simple. So Ayurveda has a lot of recommendations around how we manage different times of day in our lives so that there's less friction with our health. Then Ayurveda dives a lot into a gut digestive fire, us having this fire within us. And building that gut digestive fire to be robust is the center of all health. And I know you guys teach a lot about vagus nerve, so gut-brain axis. Gut health is brain health and mood. All these things are interconnected. So Ayurveda has a lot of tools around how to rebuild our gut health and then keep it robust. Then I also teach a lot about herbs and spices because I happen to love turmeric. My whole dissertation was on it. So I love to talk about how those powerful herbs and spices can get us rebooted when it comes to our health. And then we can come back to the lifestyle. And finally, the last piece is self-care. Ayurveda teaches us a lot about self-care rhythms that we can build throughout the day. And those are kind of our anchor points, our micro moments that help us win at our health. And when I was writing the book, I went through all those 6 pillars and I was really happy. I was like, okay, if someone just practices what's in here, they're going to win at their health. It's going to be incredible. But I kept thinking there's a final piece missing. And I have to find what is that final key in the treasure chest that I want to share. I call them golden keys is how I think of them. And the final one was mental inflammation. That term came to me as I was writing the book because I kept thinking in the health and wellness space, we tend to obsess about our health. We're almost too controlling around our health, and that can cause its own health issues. For the rest of people out there who may not be with that approach, regular life stresses, regular life impacting us the way it does with overwhelm and chronic stress alone can cause mental inflammation, which causes our physical inflammation. And so that was that final point in the book I got into, which was we must manage the stresses of life. And Ayurveda shows us powerful ways to do that. Pranayam, deep breathing, meditation. I know, Navaz, you teach so much about the vagus nerve tools we can use to stay balanced. And so I just wanted to highlight that piece is a piece of the entire Ayurvedic lifestyle that we teach. If you have that built in to your life, then also you will have vitality and great health.
I love your approach because what you're trying to do here is marry the two, right? Eastern wisdom that truly is wisdom. It's built the most populous group of people in the world of 1.4 billion Indians in the world, right? And created this healthy lifestyle and created this idea of going to India to just become one with yourself again and rediscover and heal. And you're marrying that into a Western linguistic profile, a Western kind of how do we talk about health in the Western world, but integrate these Eastern concepts. And it's interesting how little things like that are buzzwords now that you mentioned, like circadian rhythm is such a buzzword, but it's a real concept that was created through Ayurvedic medicine that people probably didn't realize.
Right.
It's so unique and such an important thing to do is to bring that wisdom into the world that we live in today. How does Ayurvedic medicine see inflammation? What is inflammation when it comes to the Ayurvedic approach? And are there specific things that we're looking for in those areas?
Good question. I mean, Ayurveda looks at the body as a system that should run well. And if it's not running well, if anything is in disharmony or dysbiosis, and we see an issue, we always go back to our first principles. So the first one is, what is your elemental design? What are you? So where did this originate from? So one example of that would be, I'm a pitta. Out of the 3 types, I'm the fire type. So I tend to run inflamed anyways. And so we're always going to look at, okay, her tendency is inflammation. What is she doing to stay imbalanced inside of her element? Well, fiery types love to eat hot, spicy, oily, and fried foods. Well, I'm one of those girls. I put hot sauce on everything. At this point, I'm like traveling with Cholula because I need it on everything. I can't eat a plain food or I need black pepper everywhere. And so sometimes we tend to cause our own imbalance. We tend to exacerbate our own issue, but oftentimes unknowingly. And so Ayurveda says, first, let's look at diet. Where do we need to make adjustments to win at inflammation and bring this person back into harmony? Then let's look at their lifestyle, their schedule, their work. So anytime you sit down with an Ayurvedic practitioner, the intake form can take an hour, hour and a half, because really we're trying to pinpoint where in your life are you causing this imbalance? Where's that point of friction? Sometimes it's your schedule. The way you're running your days is not in harmony for you. And so it's that conversation around circadian rhythm. When do you rise? When do you set with the sun? How is your sleep? We can fix a lot of inflammation through sleep alone, but really digging into how is someone's sleep? Are you sleeping 10 to 2 on the circadian clock? 10 to 2 on the clock is when Ayurveda says the fires come out and help us clear inflammation, clear the lymphatic system, clear the glymphatic system. But what are most of us doing? We are on our phones, experiencing blue light, in bed, on social media, way past those cutoff times. And so Ayurveda is just there to encourage us and say, look, this lifestyle works. Let me show you how building block by building block, you can move back into harmony. And then we start to talk about diet because a lot of times our Western practices around how we eat and when we eat are dysregulating. And so Ayurveda teaches us 3 square meals a day. Honor that digestive fire like it's a campfire. Your job is to build a healthy, robust, diverse campfire. Small sticks, medium sticks, large sticks. We call that our prebiotic and probiotic efforts nowadays because we have great science around how valid all those teachings were. So you take that, you build a healthy gut digestive fire, but then don't pour ice water on it right before you eat a meal. Don't eat meals that are too big or a meal that's too small and light, and then you're nibbling and eating snacks all day. And so much of Ayurveda is teaching us, look, this is a lifestyle. These are habits, but you can build it in like a system. That's how I think of it. Is let me build a system of health in my life. And then my job is just to practice it and keep doing it every single day. And that's how I get the results.
So let's talk a moment about what you were talking about before, what you said, mental inflammation or inflammation in the central nervous system. I always think of it as there's a parallel. Any physical trauma, any emotional trauma, anything is going to activate your immune system because your immune system is designed to protect you. And that protection is triggered, or that need to protect is triggered not only when there's a physical problem, but when there's any stress that could be emotional, mental, a lack of sleep. Any of those things will activate that inflammation. And there's a parallel level of that inflammation in the central nervous system. How do the tools of Ayurvedic medicine approach treating inflammation that's in the central nervous system versus inflammation that's in the periphery? Is there a difference?
Yeah, I mean, the way we look at it from an Ayurvedic perspective is this gut digestive fire is the center of everything. And so many people have a weakened fire. And so because of that, you're dealing with someone who doesn't have what we call ojas or vitality. In the book, I was careful to start not using all my Sanskrit words because it gets hard for everyone. But if you just hold these 2 words, your fire and then your vitality, the end product of having a robust fire that actually absorbs our food and takes the nutrition from it. And I think that's actually a big piece of why we are mentally inflamed. We're lacking resilience in the system. Like you said, immune system is triggered. Body doesn't know what to do. So many of us are living in our sympathetic nervous system. We're in fight or flight 24/7, vagus nerve dysregulation, which you both are the kings of, and teaching us how to win at our vagus nerve toning, vagus nerve health, all of these things. In Ayurveda, what we said is you can build a lifestyle, you can build a daily rhythm that's so healthy that gives you resilience. So when life throws its curveballs, which it will, whether it's the physical stressors or like you mentioned, those mental and emotional stressors, life will throw a lot at you. If we have that strength and inner vitality, we have a reserve. And that reserve is there to consistently protect us, give us the support we need. But if we have digestive fire out of whack, no vitality because we've gone through something really stressful or traumatic, maybe it's a surgery or it's a life event, and you're just knocked out and you feel like you lack vitality and energy, that's a sign that it's time to go back to the basics. Fix your sleep, fix your diet, fix your gut health, go one by one and rebuild yourself to rebuild that resilience. So much of what I teach is when you sit down to eat, pause, take a deep breath, drop into your parasympathetic. Out of the Ayurvedic self-care rituals, I added my own, and it's called Tea Time is Me Time because I need micro moments built into my day where I create the pauses that allow me to just drop into parasympathetic, take a moment. From Navaz, I learned hot tea is like humming or gargling. We're going to pause and really tone the vagus nerve. And that's our opportunity to say, you know what? Let me tune into my intuition. let me ask some powerful questions like, how am I doing today? What can I do better today? And allow the intuition to come through. So, to answer your question, Ayurveda is really giving us micro moment habits and rituals that help build the resilience we need to then have that space and resilience to manage everything life throws at us.
It really does come down to creating those moments of balance, right? And those moments of rebalancing, particularly because we live in a world and we have lifestyles that are go, go, go. They're constantly, we're running around after our kids for work. There's conferences, there's this, there's that. We're all over the place. And what that does is when we don't take those moments, is it actively causes us to be pushed into this sympathetic fight or flight situation. And that drives a lot of these inflammatory processes within our body, or it doesn't give our body the opportunity to provide control and to provide that lessening of that inflammatory fire that we're talking about here. One of those things I think that's really important to look at is something you mentioned earlier, which is when we become stressed about our health. And this is something I'm seeing a lot in practice is people that, and as much as I love wearable devices, they're coming to me and they're freaked out because their HRV was 18 last night. And they're freaked out because their breath rate was too high or their Bolt score is too low, or they're stressing about their health, which is perpetuating the problem that's created this health challenge in the first place. I want to get your take on what can people do to stop putting so much pressure on the outcome measures, to step back and say, let's allow the body to re-enter a state of balance without overstressing the mind. Because I think when you're talking about mental inflammation, this is exactly what you're talking about, is this overburdening or overstressing of the body into this anxious state.
Absolutely. I'm laughing because you're like talking about me to my face. I'm like, oh my God, Navaz, you have no idea. 2025 was the year of mold. And every time I saw those results, my first reaction was to have a complete freak out and meltdown about it and be like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like, of course, my brain's going to be eaten from the inside. Like I read too much. And so I literally had to pause and look at it and say, no. We're going to have a zero reaction to this data point. It is data. Data is information. And I think what happens is we take it so personally. In functional medicine right now, we have so much data. And then you take it personally because you think it's your fault, or I must have done something, or how could I allow this to happen? How could I allow there to be mold in far-flung corners that I didn't see or know existed, and that it entered my body, and what is it doing now? And so I think there's a lot of fear mongering in the health space right now. The algorithms really support it, which is unfortunate. And then those of us who are passionate about health, all the time that we spend on social media is like, your plastic will kill you. This thing will kill you. It's endless on my feed. And then everyone's sending it to me and I'm sending it to them. And we're just perpetuating the issue of what all can kill us. And our survival mechanism, like we've talked about, is going to come through. And that is what we're going to consume and exacerbate. So I really encourage people who come to me with those big binders of functional medicine, which I have one too on all my data. I say, look, the body knows how to heal itself. Ayurveda teaches us a completely different approach to health. It's not the approach you've taken. Now, can some of those Ayurvedic pieces come through right now and we're hearing about it in media? Yes. We're hearing about tongue scraping. TikTok is like going nuts with oil pulling right now and coconut oil pulling. That's great. Health habits as modern trends, as long as you're doing it, I'm happy about it. But the moment we take all of the health habits and turn them into obsessions, we can definitely reach a tipping point where all of a sudden we're too narrow and too tight and too high strung in those habits. So I meet a lot of people who they're wearing the wearables, they're obsessing about their sleep score. Their diet is like, I eat salmon and salad. That's it. That's all I got. I can't eat anything else. Or some people have come to me and said, I'm on ice and air at this point. That's what I eat. And they're frustrated and they're exhausted. So I think it's a big mindset shift. And the mindset shift is, where can we really have this inner conversation around, I deserve beautiful health. I have a body that knows how to heal itself. My health is a continuum. It's going to evolve day by day. I know how to build the resilience into the system so that even though life has its curves, the body is resilient. The body wants to be healthy. And it's not about any daily metric. And a lot of times I have to have those conversations with myself because once I discovered the mold, I thought, that's a huge detox journey. That's not a small one. I know what it's going to take. And so the next conversation was, when do you have time to make space for that? Because you can't just ram through these ideas. You can't just rush through them. You have to make space for it. So yes, I agree with you. We are having this big trend around obsession over health. It's leading to its own new health issues. Orthorexia, overdoing things, diet so narrow that we're causing our own new gut dysbiosis, anxiety. It's affecting our sleep. So all the things you don't want from your health journey, you're creating. And in Ayurveda, we talk so much about rhythm. It's like, get out of that mode and instead get into a beautiful self-care ritual and rhythm mode, and know that it feeds you so much that you don't have to worry about things the way you're worrying about them.
So I have a great parallel. When I first learned how to drive, and I had my permit, my grandmother was driving with me one day, and we were driving down this relatively rural road. And I was very, jerky with the steering wheel. And she pointed out to me that if I focused on 10 feet in front of the car, that I was always going to be adjusting the wheel. And it was going to be not a very comfortable ride. That what I needed to do was look 200, 300 yards down the road and anticipate and make much more sort of slow, deliberate moves. And whether or not I was 2 feet or 2 feet, 6 inches from the yellow line didn't matter. And I think that's the way we have to look at the data that we're getting. It's what's happening, whether your HRV is 18 and it was 48 yesterday and now it's 18. Okay, maybe that means you have a cold. Maybe that means you're coming down with something. It's not going to kill you. You're not dying. Just have some perspective. And an easy way to do that, for me, being a math person, is when I think about a given metric or a given test or a given measurement that's being made on me, I think about, I'm going to give it a number. I'm going to give it, is this out of 10? Is this a 1? Is this a 3? Maybe it's a 7. Maybe I go in for a stress test. Okay, the results of that stress test might be a 7, might be an 8. Got to be worried about that if it's bad. But if I'm measuring my cortisol levels on, any given day, no, that's a 1, that's a 2. Yeah, okay, maybe it's out of whack. I'm probably going to understand why, but I shouldn't lose my cool. So that's the way I do it as a math person. I'm sure there's other ways to do it for people who aren't so, quantitatively oriented. But it would be, I think having a little perspective about it allows you to use the tools responsibly. Because if you use them irresponsibly, you're actually using them to hurt yourself.
True. Very true. Yeah. I mean, we are getting so much data on ourselves. And the question is, what is our temperament as we see it and approach it? And knowing that, I think, is very important. I meet a lot of people who don't want to measure anything because they know how much anxiety they will create with that data.
It's a very common occurrence. I've had that from numerous clients as well, where they're like, I don't want to check my HRV. And I say, that's totally fine. We don't need to be wearing a wearable. We don't need to hit 10,000 steps exactly every day. We don't need to have that exact data point being met, because there are many other ways to subjectively and objectively figure out what's happening. And Ayurvedic medicine was built in a time where we didn't have these data points. We didn't have functional lab testing and blood work and all of these things happening. And so,
and isn't that really the point?
That's exactly the point, right?
When we were 1,000 years ago, we had brilliant people.
Yeah.
Who had the only thing they had was observation.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, that all of the tools that we have now have sort of diminished our ability to really be aware of what's actually going on, because we're so flooded with these almost inane data points that maybe they're connected in some way, but we're not necessarily emotionally connecting with that data in the right way. I mean, it seems like there's an opportunity. I give the parallel. There was a street in Denmark. I think we've talked about this on the podcast a couple of times. In Denmark, there was this road, and this road was very twisty and turny, and there were some accidents that occurred on the road. And so the people in charge decided they were going to put up road signs to warn people. And what happened was the number of accidents started to get larger. And so they put more signs up because they thought, oh my gosh, this is even worse. And it got to the point where like every 30 feet, there was a sign. And yet the number of accidents kept going higher until finally somebody said, let's just remove all the signs and see what happens. They removed all of them and all the large majority of the accidents went away. It dropped back down because people started observing the right data points. Instead of looking at the sign, they were watching the road. And so that's what I think we need to recognize. If you've got too many wearables and you're following too many different things, you're going to end up confusing the most important signal, which is how do you feel?
That's exactly where I was going with this. I would love to get your take on, as Ayurvedic was being created, what were some of those subjective practices and subjective outcomes that you're kind of looking for that help you identify how your body is functioning? What are some of the things that we should be looking for?
You know, you both bring up such a beautiful point. In the ancient traditions, we really looked at someone and took the time to really understand that person. And I think that's where having your old village medicine man or medicine woman came in, because they then knew everybody in the village and had an idea of what could be the cause of the imbalance. They knew your family, they knew the family history, they know where you live. We don't live in those times right now. But when you go to a true integrative practitioner, that is the time that they take. When someone signs up to work with me, I am really tuning into them. And over time, you get to a point where your intuition already gives you the answer. Like I can be halfway into a consultation and the answer is screaming itself from the inside. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that really the answer? And then I talk to the client in front of me and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you figured it out. But yeah, that you didn't even know this about me, and that is the issue. And so really it's about driving deeper and deeper into what is the root cause. Sometimes it's a trauma. Sometimes it's really the job. Sometimes it's the marriage. Oftentimes we think, oh my gosh, I just need to control more around my health. That's going to give me the result. And Ayurveda really shows us we have a different tool set. We want to look at your eyes. How bright are your eyes? We want to look at your tongue. The tongue from Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine can give you a wealth of knowledge. So when we are analyzing someone's tongue, we know what organ is off, what's too hot in the body, what's too cold, what is irritated and aggravated, and then we go digging deeper. We look at your nails, we look at your skin, we look at your countenance. How did you walk in? Energetically, how did you walk in? What is going on in your life and your job? Kind of whatever your response is. What's your physicality? Are you looking like you're more on the obese side right now or less so? How is your health? How's your vibrancy and vitality? And all those things correlate to how we're going to talk about your digestive fire, your circadian rhythm, these core pillars of health. And then it can, of course, go deeper into treatment with the specific herbs and things like that. But a lot of times it's a bigger conversation around how's your global health. And so it's interesting that right now in functional medicine, we have amazing tools. I go to the conferences and I just want every test. And it's fun to be a practitioner in the space studying functional medicine too, because I want to fuse the two. But one big concern I have is we're overreaching. It's a strong word to use, but we're pretty much overreaching into the testing category, completely forsaking the idea that really the lifestyle is what matters, no matter what the data says. I have people I know who say, you know what, my A1C is this, that's what I'm working on. Like, okay, great. A1C is one number. There's so much more to why that number exists in your life. Let's look at it from the global perspective and see, can you make more space for your total health? And that's Ayurveda's point, is your total health matters. How you're eating, when you're eating, community, sleep. It's not just one number, one metric, and that's all that matters in life. And we have to obsess until we win at the number. That number is just a moment in time.
It reminds me of the fact that all Western physicians have to take the Hippocratic Oath, and they're taking the wrong oath. Instead, I mean, not that what they're saying is, and the oath that they take isn't valuable. But the other thing that Hippocrates says was, it's more important to know the patient that has the disease than the disease that the patient has, because that's where you find the solution. You don't find the solution in identifying the disease. You find the solution in working with the patient. So I think that's the message that the history of Western medicine is ancient Greece, and we should be learning from what they did. We took it in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Very true.
One of my favorite sayings, kind of how I've built my practice, my mindset around my practice, is entirely on the idea that the doctor's job is to distract the mind while the body does the healing, because ultimately the healing can only happen internally. And it's the doctor's job to provide the correct advice, the correct recommendations, the correct education to the patient to create a lifestyle that enables them to enter that healing mode more readily. And this is something that you kind of had alluded to earlier, that we want to enable that healing process, but that healing process is innately present in that person. It's not the doctor's job. The doctor is not the healer. The healer is the body themselves. And it's the fishbowl idea, right? Like when the fish is sick, do you throw, like, what do? Do you put chemicals in, or do you clean out the water, right? Like, what are the things that you can do? And you want to clean out that environment. And so when it comes to that approach from an Ayurvedic perspective, you've mentioned a lot of these lifestyle factors. Sleep is kind of that big holy grail that needs to be addressed in virtually everybody, particularly in the Western world where we're inundated with blue light and stress and devices that we live on, or literally. Let's talk about some of the other practices. You've mentioned diet. What are some of the basic principles when it comes to diet that we need to look at? And I know, like, the basics are going to be eating real food, but what are some of the really important factors that need to be looked at from that perspective?
I love that Ayurveda talks about how we eat and when we eat, even more than what we eat.
I love that.
In the West, and probably on the whole planet at this point, we're pretty obsessed with, like, what are we eating? Is it superfoods? Is it healthy? There's more awareness right now in the West that our food is completely vitamin and mineral depleted. So even though we're trying to be healthy, are we getting what we need? But Ayurveda takes one big step back from that and says, are you eating fresh food every day, or is it dead? And if it's dead, it's not going to give you any prana or life force. And so a lot of people right now are doing big meal preps. They're like, every Sunday, I cook 7 days of food. And Ayurveda says that's the not right way to do it. It's really not the ideal way to do it. If you can cook fresh every day, amazing. If you can't, you have to freeze the food, totally understood. But don't make Monday food and then eat that refrigerated food on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That is completely hard to digest. And we want the system to have ease with digesting food and pulling in the nutrition that we need and then getting rid of what does not serve. And so that's the first big one from Ayurveda. We have a lot of conversations about leftovers and not eating that. And what's interesting is in modern science, we're talking about histamine and all of that. And it's like, well, that food is not good for you anymore. So I'm glad modern science is going to prove what Ayurveda already said, so I don't have to fight with people as much. So that would be a good first one. Second one is when we're sitting down to eat our food, sit down. Don't stand and eat. Don't be in motion and eat. We're not going to process and digest and absorb that food. That's a big one. I know it sounds simple, but how many of us are on a device while we're eating food? I would assume it's over 90% of us because there's so much going on. On my phone, Instagram's blowing up, Facebook, WhatsApp, Slack, my team. There's 5,000 emails. I think I have 400,000 unread emails at a given time in that phone. So the work is endless. But if we don't take 5 minutes a day, 3 times a day to actually focus on that food, what are we doing? We're just wasting our time. We're not going to get the benefits. And so I personally think about that a lot because I do source fresh, healthy, organic food, and I consider it my mission to be healthy. But if I'm not going to absorb it because I can't take the time to focus on the food for 5 minutes, what was the point? And one good way to measure that is, are you still hungry after your meal? If I'm hungry right after the meal and I'm looking for the chips or a treat or something, that's my sign that I paid no attention to the meal and I have no idea. Now I need to wait 15 minutes and see am I full or not. Another big one is timing. So on the circadian clock, Ayurveda taught us intermittent fasting 5,000 years ago. Ayurveda said 7 to 7 on that clock, we're meant to hold an intermittent fast. So we're meant to finish dinner by 7, give the body 3 hours to be done, processed, finished with that meal. So we get the highest quality sleep starting from 10 p.m., ideally, approximately based on who you are, and then holding that fast till 7 or till 9. But Ayurveda did say have your 3 square meals a day. Put nutrition and support into your system so that you can digest, process, and move on. And I know everyone has different plans right now, 1 meal a day and different things. But when you do sit down to eat, we recommend don't use ice water or anything that will turn off digestion. Instead, allow that fire and heat to come in and process that food and give you the absorption. And so, like you teach, when we do sit down to eat, take a moment, take a breath, drop into your parasympathetic, receive the benefits of that food, and that's how we get to move forward a healthier, happier human being. And then finally, I would say circadian diet. In the West, specifically, we tend to eat a very non-seasonal diet. Our grocery stores have everything. I can go to Sprouts and everything I want to eat is there 365 days a year, and I like it that way. If I want to eat Sprouts every day and beet salad every day, I can. But in the ideal world, Ayurveda says eat on a circadian diet. It said walk in the grocery store and see, oh my gosh, the summer fruit is here. It's all peaches and nectarines and watermelon and mangoes. Why? Because those are cooling foods. And we're meant to use food seasonally to support the body, and we will absorb that food better as well because it is according to the circadian clock. So those are just some of the tips from Ayurveda that we teach around food so that we can be our healthiest.
One of the words that you've mentioned, and I think it's probably the single most important word, is prana, life force. I think in traditional Chinese medicine, the idea of qi is very parallel or very aligned with that. But I want to talk about pranayama because pranayama, I think we've sadly bastardized into a form of yoga. And yoga is something that's even been bastardized further into, this 45 to 60 minute routine that you do where you have poses and whatever. It's about breath. It's about breath control. So prana, you mentioned, means life force. Yama means control or building control over it. So pranayama is control over the life force, and it's done through breath techniques. This is one of my favorite concepts when it comes to Ayurveda. Let's talk about the importance of breath control, pranayama overall in health.
For sure. So I did my yoga teacher certification in 2020, and it was my greatest gift I ever gave to myself. I did it where I live here in South Florida, but my teacher very much honors the ancient traditions of yoga, Ayurveda, India. So I teach a lot in that studio. And it's a thing where I have found rarely do people want me to tell them to do yoga. People have a lot of opinions. Yoga's too hard. I can't do that. I don't bend that way. I'm not flexible. It's not my thing. So I don't teach yoga much because yoga is a sister science to Ayurveda. Pranayama is part of that. But I don't win when I'm like, we all need to deep breathe every day and do our yoga stretches. It's almost like I've gone too far in my health guidance. And so even though I teach the 6 pillars of Ayurveda, it's the one I talk about the least, but I wish people did the most. And it's so interesting, but deep breathing now, we just think of it as box breathing. And we know it's good for us. We know deep breathing is good for us. But it's the one thing that's free that we just won't do as a society. And it's so funny. It takes practitioners like you, Navaz, and JP, you guys talking about vagus nerve, breathe, guys, breathe. And no one wants to listen until they're so dysregulated. They have to go to a practitioner and hear it. So yes, pranayama means bringing in pranic life force. And it's as easy as making a tiny bit of space in your day. I do find most of us in modern day life are what we call vata dysregulated, according to Ayurveda. We're in this air and ether, constant movement, constant overwhelm, constant something, but never sitting still. And that if that sitting still is too hard for you, which I completely understand, I consider walking my best meditation. I walk in the morning, I walk in the evening, I can walk anytime. I teach everyone do circadian walks. Walk in nature twice a day. And if you can, do not listen to content because there's so much content we're going to listen to at some point, whether we're driving, doing the dishes, who knows what. But if you can take those walks and sometimes just put the phone down and breathe, that is the greatest gift you can give yourself. We know in the morning, according to circadian clock, we want everyone to get outside, tune into the sun, align to their circadian clock. So that's the ideal time to start this idea. But it could also be in your evening for decompression. It could also be in your lunch hour. Whenever I've had a job in a corporate building, I get outside after I eat my lunch and I just walk around the building once and take deep breaths. So I love free, easy tools that are micro moments that are easy. And pranayama, as you've talked about, is one of the easiest free ways to bring more energy and life force in. And the issue is most of us are not giving ourselves that, and then we're worrying and wondering, why am I tired? Why am I fatigued? Why is my brain not working? Why do I have low mitochondrial function and I need more energy and I need more supplements? It's like
Because it needs oxygen.
you just need more breath. It's that easy. Yeah.
Completely
Yeah, it
agree.
comes down to that control over the breath and just enabling your body to become one with the rhythms of life, right? The rhythm of the day, the rhythm of the seasons, the rhythm of the hormones, and all of that aligning and coming together. And when we're constantly distracted because we're listening to a podcast or we're scrolling on Instagram or we're on emails, we're not actually giving our body the opportunity to connect with the environment in which we're living truly. There's a disconnect that is occurring. I think that's so important to understand. That disconnection leads to dysregulation. Dysregulation leads to uncontrolled inflammation. And so I want to bring it back to the inflammation code. And let's talk a little bit about those particular practices, those particular signs that we should be looking for that are showing us that our bodies are truly inflamed and that we need to do something from a rebalancing perspective to enable control over that inflammation.
For sure. I mean, in the book, I talked a lot about those symptoms of inflammation. We are oftentimes suffering with joint pain, redness, swelling, headaches, brain fog. Bodies are, so many people complain about digestive issues, stiffness in their joints, pains. All of these are signs of inflammation. When I meet with my friends who are all about 45, they're like, oh my gosh, I guess this is all just aging. And I'm like, no, it's not aging. It's inflammaging. And we need to let go of this inflammation piece and we will see we're not aging at this rapid rate that now life sucks and it's unfortunate. It's just inflammation keeps creeping up and up and up. And that's common. It's normal. And the thing is, we're normalizing this belief that, we're just aging. We have to slow down. We have to stop living life. We have to stop doing all the things we used to do. And that's my message to people. Why don't you just address the inflammation and then see how much energy and vitality you have and see how much space you have then to create the life that you want. I truly feel at 45, I am more capable, more energized, and more ready to create great things in my life than I ever was before. And so this book is really a blueprint on applying Ayurveda into your life so that you can have that energy and vitality back. But also, like we've talked about, build resilience into the system as life throws curveballs at you. Why don't you have gut health on point, this robustness of health, so that you can really fight off whatever comes along? We're going to have viruses that come along. We can have inflammation-based issues that come along. But if the overall lifestyle is so anti-inflammatory, then we've really talked here about prevention and not having a lot of big devastating health effects later. My whole family is diabetic, all generations, all people. And all I've seen in my life is what that end quarter of life can look like. And I know what it looked like for my grandparents. I can see it in my parents' generation now. And I think we can completely choose a different life plan. We can design our lives completely differently. That was the point of this book. Let's do a different approach so we get a completely different result.
Doing the same thing and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So you got to do something differently.
Absolutely. True. You've talked about herbs, and I want to talk a little bit about your famous dissertation and everything that was done on turmeric and curcumin. Tell us a little bit about just how powerful this particular herb is in helping to reduce that innate inflammatory process within the body. And JP, go for it.
Yeah, and explain the difference to people between
turmeric and curcumin.
and just give people the background, because we have a tendency to dive into things, and I'm probably the worst of it, dive into things without giving enough of a background that people can step into the conversation and get it.
Sure. It's so true. I'm very accused of that because I get so excited about turmeric. So turmeric is a rhizome. It's a sister to ginger. If we know ginger, we know turmeric, and turmeric's having its heyday in the mainstream culture. Turmeric's being added to everything. What's interesting is out of the entire turmeric plant, only 3 to 5% of that plant is the curcuminoids. And that's the extract we consider the most effective out of turmeric at this time to help us win at inflammation in our health. So when everyone's adding regular kitchen culinary turmeric to everything, you're not going to get that profound, significant reduction of inflammation. When people are giving you juice shots and saying that's enough, that may be enough for some to win at inflammation. I believe in fresh turmeric and dried turmeric. But when we're talking about health outcomes, that's not the place to go for that significant reduction. Now, when we talk about the curcuminoids, I believe that curcumin is the most effective at reducing inflammation based on the research. And it's important to give that ratio of the curcuminoids mimicking Mother Nature. And that's where we run into a lot of trouble. Because in the supplement world, everyone can create whatever they want, however they want, as inexpensively as they want. And so as I was going through my PhD on turmeric, I was reading all this science. I was so excited. And I thought, okay, it helps with our heart health, our brain health, our gut health. It helps with inflammation systemically. We're basically all walking around like human bodies with house fires going on the inside. And turmeric is this profound fire extinguisher that'll just shut off that systemic problematic inflammation that's damaging us from the inside. And we could instead walk around with beautiful health, cells that work, and a body that works. And so I think of turmeric as a very powerful anti-inflammatory, which we know is important right now, antioxidant, which is going to prevent all that oxidation of the system, aging that we're experiencing, those aches and pains and joint pain that many of us complain about as we age. Then it also is very brain protective. So neuroprotective, neuroinflammation is impacted by curcumin. We also know it creates neurogenesis, new brain cells, which I know I want as I age, mitogenesis, so mitochondrial health, new mitochondria in our body as we're aging. We know a lot of these processes decline. So the fact that turmeric can recreate that as we're aging is a very big deal. Then with our gut health, helps with our gut lining, helps as an antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal. So you guys are vagus nerve, you're all about gut and brain, and I'm all about what is going to support my gut and what is going to give me a fast-working, amazing, robust brain as I age. I don't want to lose any brain cells. I don't want to lose my ability to focus and create. And I know many people are worried about that. We're seeing this prevalence of dementia and neurocognitive issues happening in our population. And so I'm very passionate about what are we doing to really reduce that inflammation and win. And so turmeric does all of that. And then people are like, well, what doesn't it do? Like, what's the negative side? There has to be a negative. It is a vasodilator, so it can thin the blood. So that's helpful in many ways because it creates more blood flow, hair, skin, and nails, and sexual dysfunction and those things. But it isn't to be used with someone on a blood thinner. So that's kind of the one thing about turmeric we talk about.
Yeah, that's such a great overview. And I think it's really important for people to know that when you are supplementing, when you're using it, it needs to be sourced effectively. It needs to be ratioed effectively to that of the ratio of the natural source. And it's not just any random orange-colored pill that's going to provide the right coverage that you need. Talk a little bit about the quality that people should be looking for when they're looking at turmeric supplementation.
For sure. So when I was finishing my PhD, every time someone came to me with a problem, I would say, you can take turmeric for that. You have a sore throat? You can take turmeric. Your knees hurt? You can take turmeric. And they would say, okay, whose can I buy? And I'll say, well, I don't know. I'm going to go look at the labels. And the problem is, in our supplement world, anyone can say anything on the labels. Everyone's labels can be different. I almost got a second PhD on how to read supplement labels because they all said something different. And so I, at the time, met this incredible partner and factory owner. And I said, one day I want to make my own turmeric. And I just want to prove to all of Western medicine what the science already says. You can have turmeric and it can stand up to NSAIDs and all these things that we're using for pain. And they were like, well, that's really hard because in supplements, we don't go for quality. That's expensive. We just go for making the cheapest product to deliver the highest profit. And I looked at them and I was like, that is not my intention. My whole PhD was turmeric. My dream is to create the most potent turmeric and prove to the world what curcumin from turmeric can do. And so that's what I did. I built a formula a decade ago, put it into orthopedic offices, probably the toughest doctor market to to step into. But I just wanted to show that in orthopedics, if I came to you and you said you can take turmeric for that and the patient wanted the natural solution, then they would be able to take a natural solution that had less side effects for them. Because I'm one of those people. If there's a side effect, I will get that side effect. And at the time, there was also an article that got published that said supplements in big box retailers, I think it was the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, went and studied them and did third-party testing on them. And they found that over 75% of the supplements on the shelves did not have ingredients as they stated on the labels. And that really enraged me because at the time, I was still someone who really relied on the supplements for my immune system. And I was like, if you don't give me vitamin C or vitamin D at the level I paid for that I believe is in there, I'm in trouble. Like I relied on supplements. I still rely on supplements. And so that really put a fire under me to move into this medical grade level of supplementation that we have now in the functional medicine space. And it's growing. Over the last decade, the world is changing so fast. So now there's players and doctors know when your stuff works or doesn't because they're seeing it in the patient base. And so I've been able to work with doctors for the last decade and they're like, wow, Shivani, your turmeric can do. And I hear all sorts of stories of patients who take it every day, patients who are coming off of their pain meds. And so that's my dream is for all of Western medicine, when they say you have something itis or you have inflammation, to say you could also take turmeric for that. But for people to know where to find good quality brands that actually put turmeric in the products at that high dosage and mimicking Mother Nature.
Can you just geek out with me for 1 minute and just give everybody the biochemical pathway by which curcumin is reducing inflammation? Is it, is it a COX inhibitor? Is it a choline activator? Is it, what? It's not an opioid. What is it?
It's not an opioid. So curcumin impacts TNF alpha, NF kappa B, interleukin 6, interleukin 9. The fact that it affects those master switches, the TNF alpha, NF kappa B, causes that cascade effect on over 30 other inflammatory pathways. And then we see this cascade effect in the body. And it's been so interesting over the last decade because I get to hear the patient stories and the doctor stories, both sides. And from people, what I will hear is, you got rid of my back pain. Like you took me from an 8 to a 2. I am so happy. But then you got rid of my allergies. And then you got rid of my gingivitis. And this is weird. But like I wake up and I feel younger. And I'm like, that's the power of really looking at something that knows how to go into our body and heal at that multidimensional level. Like you're going after big issues, then medium, and then small. And so, of course, if you're going to impact those pathways of inflammation, it's going to go after the big issues, then small, then, goes from there. So to me, it's so interesting, the level of exponential study of curcumin that's happening. Like since my PhD, the volume of science, and my dream is to participate in that science and publish double-blind placebo-controlled trials across every subspecialty of medicine. The British Medical Journal just published a study that curcumin is as effective as PPIs. So for all of GI medicine now, if it's as effective and has less side effects, why wouldn't you recommend it? And we see that for joint pain as well. So I get really excited about the science.
I believe it's also, it's the NRF2 pathway that is being activated, right? That's the primary mechanistic pathway that it's activating. And that's why you created fusionary formulas, is because you wanted to get this out, this high quality, real curcumin out to the people that needed it the most. And I'm so happy that you did so. And we're happy to partner with you. If anybody is looking for fusionary formulas, specifically their turmeric, which I know is a very, very high quality product, you'll check it out in the show notes. We've got our codes and whatnot. But if you just use the code Health Upgraded, all in one word, you'll get 15% off at Fusionary Formulas. So make sure that you utilize that code and really look to get the highest quality stuff, right? Like, unfortunately, and as sad as it is, the Costco supplements are not good, right? Like we know that they're not looking at the high quality stuff. We know that they're trying to stack a whole lot of stuff at a lowest possible cost for them. And if you truly want to heal, you really want to get the right stuff, the right herbs, the right supplements. Make sure that you're looking for supplement quality. And so I can attest to this wonderful brand of Fusionary Formulas to get that in for me and my family.
Thank you. Thanks so much. That's my dream, is let's heal the world together from all the different health approaches that we have.
Absolutely. Shivani, so excited for your upcoming book. I believe The episode that we have releases just the week prior to your book release. So we're really, really excited to support you on this journey and to get this inflammation code out to as many people as possible. If anybody doesn't know who you are or where to follow you, give us the rundown. Where can they learn more about you?
For sure. So my website is shivanigupta.com, my name, ShivanIGupta. And I'm at dr.shivanigupta on Instagram and all the social channels. The book is The Inflammation Code, and that's the name of my podcast as well. And then Fusionary is fusionaryformulas.com, FUSIONARY. And like you said, Health Upgraded is 15% off.
Amazing. JP, any final thoughts?
No, I'm just excited that we had another opportunity to speak. This has been a great discussion. I really appreciate your perspective on things.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
It's always amazing. JP and I have both been guests on your podcast. We're excited to have you on and to support your book and get this info out to as many people as possible. Shivani, wonderful conversation as always. I'm looking forward to the next time we can reconnect and chat again. And thank you all for getting to this point in the podcast, for listening and to learn about this inflammation code and how you can really reduce inflammation in your body. If you got to this point in the podcast, share this episode with at least 3 people who could utilize this information, because I honestly think 3 people in your life are dealing with significant inflammatory issues and they can probably benefit significantly from this. And so let's get this out to as many people as you possibly can. Thank you all for listening. We'll catch you all on the next episode. Talk soon.